The end of the world has arrived, and my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend has traveled thousands of miles to find him, she cried and said. We missed each other in life, but we must be together in death. My boyfriend was so touched that he passionately kissed her, while I was on the verge of death after being infected with the zombie virus. In the end, the two of them conspired to use me as bait to attract the zombies, my boyfriend said. Anyway, you're not going to make it, since you love me. It would be worth your life to fulfill us. When thousands of zombies charged towards me, I closed my eyes in despair. When I opened my eyes again, not only did I not die, but I also awakened my superpower. You bitch and bastard, prepare to die. 1. The zombie tide was about to come, and I was dizzy due to a cold and couldn't keep up with the large evacuation group. I could see that my boyfriend Arthur was a bit annoyed about taking care of me. I was extremely anxious, and there were many blisters on the corners of my mouth. I secretly lamented that I had fallen ill at the worst possible time. His ex-girlfriend Alice saw all of this and secretly came to me, saying, Sister Eleanor, can you stop being a burden to Arthur? I stared at her blankly. What right did she have to call me a burden? Which of the supplies that Arthur used in daily life wasn't collected by me with great difficulty? Even the current shelter was found by me after walking more than 10 miles. Thinking about it, I shouldn't have worked so hard that I made myself overworked and got a fever. How dare the skinny girl call me a burden? Alice stood in front of me, speaking plausibly. Since she could travel thousands of miles regardless of the danger for Arthur, why couldn't I understand Arthur's hardship and voluntarily leave the team? She even hoped that I would take the initiative to break up with him again. I was so speechless that I rolled my eyes and scolded her. It's none of your business. Do I need you to meddle in whether I break up or not? Alice immediately became so aggrieved that she burst into tears. I know you're feeling terrible because you're sick. I'm also thinking about Arthur's safety. Aren't you causing trouble for Arthur by being sick now? After saying that, she turned around and left, and I didn't even bother to pay attention to her. I've seen so many girls like her who act like bitches. I really don't have the extra energy to argue with her, but soon, Arthur rushed towards me. He, who always thought highly of himself, actually had a trace of anger in his eyebrows and eyes. My heart skipped a beat. Arthur growled, Will you ever stop? You still have the energy to bully Alice even when you're sick. When I heard him say that, I suddenly sneered, without even asking about the details of the matter. He came right out and said that I was bullying Alice. I asked him in return, Arthur, do you also think that I'm a burden to you now? 3 days ago, the government announced that the zombie tide was approaching our city and asked the residents to immediately go to the designated safe base. Arthur and I met Alice at the exit of the city during the evacuation. Alice was wearing a white dress with blood spots. When she saw Arthur, she threw herself into his arms. She was shouting that after the end of the world came, she had traveled thousands of miles just to die in Arthur's arms. Only in this way could she have no regrets in her life. Her passionate confession instantly moved Arthur, but it made me feel disgusted. I never expected that Arthur would hug Alice and passionately kiss her right in front of me. I was so angry that I rushed up to pull the two of them apart and directly slapped Arthur, knocking his gold-rimmed glasses flying. I let out a sigh of relief and said, Arthur, you damn scumbag. You still dare to provoke me when you can't let go of your ex-girlfriend. Arthur and I met through a blind date. I knew that he had an ex-girlfriend he couldn't get over, but I didn't know that he still had lingering feelings for her, so I proposed to break up. But Arthur didn't agree. Alice's face turned green, and she sobbed pitifully. Sister, I just couldn't control my feelings. Don't blame Arthur, and don't misunderstand my true intentions. I didn't want to listen to her nonsense at all. I was so annoyed that I even wanted to slap her. I knew the reason why Arthur didn't want to break up with me. I had learned some free combat skills for a while, and he was interested in my combat ability, thinking that I could protect him during this escape in the apocalypse. As a man, he could be flexible. He immediately knelt down and begged me not to break up. He said that he just didn't dodge when Alice, who had no shame, leaned in for the kiss. I smiled. Who would be fooled by such nonsense? Then he said that it was difficult for a woman to survive in the apocalypse and asked me to agree to let Alice come with us. In the end, he swore to heaven that he would never betray me. At that time, I had snatched supplies from the mouths of zombies several times, and my body frequently gave warnings. For my own safety, I definitely couldn't have a falling out with Arthur at that moment. If we broke up, he definitely wouldn't leave the supplies to me. After much consideration, I could only swallow my nausea and nod to forgive him once. When Arthur saw that I didn't speak, he grabbed my shoulders with both hands and interrupted my thoughts. I replied to him, I'm a sick person. How could I take the initiative to provoke her? Have you had your brain eaten by a zombie? He was at a loss for words. After a while, he said, Alice is right. You are indeed a burden to us. His once gentle eyes were now cold. At that moment, I knew that I was about to be abandoned, too. After Arthur finished speaking and was about to leave, I immediately grabbed the sleeve of his clothes. At that time, my body became weak and limp due to the fever. If I was left behind now, I would surely die. I didn't want to die, so I could only hold back my anger and say, "Arthur, don't leave me behind." When the end of the world broke out while Arthur and I were discussing our marriage, we had depended on each other since then. I fought against the zombies, and he took advantage of the situation. As a result, I risked my life for him countless times and almost lost my life to the zombies. He was also touched countless times and confessed to me that if I got injured, he would never leave me. This time, I had a fever due to overwork. In this world, 999 gan mailing, a kind of cold medicine, had become a rare item. Thinking of this, I mumbled with my dry lips and swallowed my nausea as I begged him not to leave me behind. Survival was the most important thing. Holding back my fear, I said with a sobbing voice, "Arthur, I've risked my life for you. I just have a minor cold now. I promise I'll get better in 2 days. Please don't leave me behind." Compared to survival, what did it matter if I had to be humble? I stared closely at Arthur's face. Not wanting to miss any of his expressions, he pulled my hand away, sighed, and said, "Don't worry, I won't leave you behind, just like I won't leave Alice behind. We'll talk about everything when we get to the safe base." Arthur's words didn't comfort me because Alice's eyes were staring straight at me, giving me a bad feeling. I felt dizzy and extremely flustered. My chest was even heavier, and it was a bit difficult for me to breathe out. Arthur held me and said to relax. Later, my mind went blank and I lost consciousness. Tears kept falling in my sleep. If my body hadn't been so weak, how could I have been so pathetic? When I woke up again, the people around me who were running for their lives were pointing at me. They said that I was infected with the zombie virus and asked me to leave the team immediately and fend for myself. I defended myself, saying that I just had a minor cold and didn't know when I was infected with the zombie virus. Then, when I checked my body, I actually found a wound on my finger. It started to fester and rot there. Alice seemed to be talking to herself. "It's so strange. Sister Eleanor said it was a cold, but why hasn't it gotten better for so long? And there's also a rotten wound on her finger." As soon as she finished speaking, Arthur looked at me suspiciously. I immediately looked up at Alice and saw her raise the corners of her mouth triumphantly. She then pretended that I had committed some heinous crime and accused me. "Sister Eleanor, you're infected with the virus, but you still lied that it was a cold. I can understand that you want to live, but you can't take revenge on everyone." With a buzz, everyone moved 10 feet away from me. I was so angry that I was shaking. Someone even threw an empty drink bottle at my forehead, and it immediately started bleeding, until the leader decided not to rest anymore and that we had to set off early the next morning for the safe base, and I would be left behind, and being eaten by the zombies would be my fate. Alice walked straight towards me but kept a distance from me. I watched her warily. She showed a sinister look and said in a voice that only the two of us could hear, "You're infected with the virus, and you'll soon be abandoned and left to die." I asked her in surprise and confusion, "It's you. Why did you harm me?" I thought that matters of the heart shouldn't escalate to the point of endangering someone's life. So when Arthur begged me to let her escape with us, I readily agreed. At worst, I could break up with him when we reached the safe base and stay away from this scumbag and bitch. I never expected that she would be so vengeful. Thinking about it, I felt my throat blocked, and it was hard for me to swallow my saliva. If there was a way to turn back time, I would rather find a place to hide than follow this fool Arthur. Now he had made me infected with the zombie virus, completely cutting off my hope of survival. I looked up and saw her raise her chin, with a contemptuous look in her eyes. "You're Arthur's girlfriend, so you have to die. He's mine. Don't worry, I'll take care of him for you after you're gone, hee hee." Her laughter echoed in my ears like a death knell, making me shiver all over. In front of me, Alice no longer pretended to be a kind-hearted person. She kept provoking me. "Do you want to make a bet? Let's see if Arthur will save you or kill you." Then, without waiting for my reply, she said excitedly, "Sister Eleanor, if I were in your situation, I wouldn't hide it. I wouldn't cause trouble for everyone. I sympathize with your situation, but you can't wrong me either." Alice anxiously turned around and grabbed Arthur's arm, crying pitifully. My bleeding forehead ached, and my heart felt stuffy. Arthur's eyes looking at me gradually showed disgust, and his tone was cold. "Eleanor, if you had taken the initiative to admit that you were infected with the zombie virus, I might have thought better of you, but the way you're so afraid of death now is really disgusting." I pointed at my broken body and mumbled, "But have you ever thought that I'm like this because of you? When food was in short supply after the end of the world broke out, I took on everything. He should be grateful to me for still being able to breathe." Arthur sighed. "I'd rather you had died for me before. Then I could still remember your goodness." I was so angry that blood rushed to my head, and there was a metallic taste of blood in my throat. Arthur seemed terrifyingly strange in front of me. I couldn't speak because of my physical discomfort. Alice said, "Sister Eleanor is going too far. You're infected with the virus because you're useless. How can you morally blackmail Arthur?" Before she could say anything else, I used all my strength to pounce on her and grabbed her neck. Alice's face turned red from being choked, and she said, "Arthur, Sister Eleanor is about to mutate. Save me quickly." With tears on her face, she looked pitiful. Arthur's combat ability was almost zero. He was a bit scared when he saw how fierce I was. He frowned and said, "Eleanor, let go of Alice quickly. What she said is not wrong. Don't be confused." He told me righteously that they were thinking of me. Even if they took me to the safe base, there was no vaccine to cure me there. He advised me to give up and accept the arrangement of death now, just because of my concealment. The people in the large group were now in a panic, afraid that they would be infected with the virus if they came into contact with me. They even rejected Arthur and Alice. He meant that I should immediately find a place to end my own life and not be so stubborn as to harm everyone, including Alice in my hands. At this point, Arthur said to me very excitedly, "Do you understand after I've said so much to you, you almost killed me just because of your concealment? Let go of Alice immediately." For the sentence that I almost killed him directly ignited the defensive line in my heart. I squeezed Alice's neck tightly and said hatefully, "It's all because of you that I was infected with the virus. If I can't live today, neither can you." Alice tightly grasped my wrists with both hands, and her face gradually turned purple as she groaned in pain. She was still shouting desperately, "Arthur, Sister Eleanor has lost her mind. Kill her quickly, otherwise, you'll also die at her hands." Arthur took a deep breath and kicked me, who was weak from illness, away with a cold expression. I was kicked several meters away by him, and the blood that had been stuck in my throat finally spurted out at this moment. Alice and I coughed alternately, with Arthur not seeing her facial expression. She held her neck and stared at me with a smile. I could tell from her lip movements that she said, "You lost." I opened my mouth to speak, but the blood in my mouth kept flowing down. Suddenly, I heard someone outside shouting, "The zombie tide is coming. Everyone, run for your lives." After getting up, Alice didn't run away in a panic. In front of me, she found the leader. The leader glanced at her and ignored her, being anxious to arrange the escape route. Alice quickly said in a hoarse voice, "I have a way to help everyone get out of trouble." Her method was to run with me and then leave me behind to attract the attention of the zombies when they got close, buying time for them. After hearing this, my heart tightened, and I clenched my fists and tensed my body. I wanted to gather my strength, but I was weak and limp. The metallic taste of blood in my throat was so strong that I couldn't suppress it. Arthur actually nodded in agreement after hearing this, completely forgetting the love words he had said to me before. "She's not infected yet and hasn't died either. We can all survive now because of the shelter she found. Otherwise, we would have been torn apart by the zombies long ago. Doing this goes against the moral bottom line." The leader didn't agree to this method, which made me heave a sigh of relief. Alice raised her thin eyebrows and sneered, "Anyway, she's going to die. If she can save so many people before she dies, it will be her merit." The next second, that breath of mine rose back up to my throat and blocked it. Naturally, those who wanted to live all agreed with Alice's statement. I watched as they surrounded me tightly, preventing me from counterattacking. One of them said excitedly, "Yeah, since she's going to die anyway, why can't we use her death to save ourselves?" She was willing to risk her life to find the shelter. Now that she's infected with the virus, why can't she help us out of danger? Since she's such a good person, let her be this good person. It's the end of the world now. Don't think too much. Saving our lives is the most important thing, Arthur coldly echoed. As her boyfriend, I'll agree on her behalf. Her actions no longer deserve our sympathy. I took care of her for so long, and she didn't even show me any gratitude. She even tried to infect me. It shows that she has already mutated. Alice nodded and said, "That's right. She's no longer human. Everyone, don't have any psychological burden." My chest was filled with anger, which was surging inside me. I felt my eyes congestive. I stared at them intently, and seeing them step back in fear, I said coldly, "If you want to die, come at me. I have a 50% chance of dying from the virus infection, and also a 50% chance of awakening my superpower. You'd better think carefully about the consequences if I manage to survive." After hearing this, Alice laughed with a snort. She waved her hand and directed the people surrounding me to mock. "Can a person who is about to die defeat so many of us? Moreover, you won't have a chance to survive." I gritted my teeth and wanted to fight them. Alice came up with another idea. "Don't attack her head on. There are stones here. Let's knock her out first and then tie her up." I was stunned. Alice was really cruel-hearted. Stones were thrown at my body one after another. I felt pain all over my body and my heart turned cold. The stones came from all directions, and Arthur was also involved in it. The low growls of the zombies were getting closer and closer, and Alice was extremely anxious. "The stones are being thrown too slowly. Let's tie her up together. Tie her up tightly." 5. They swarmed up, tied my hands and feet with ropes, and started dragging me along the way. My skin rubbed against the ground, and a burning pain instantly swept through my whole body. When I encountered the unevenness of the ground, my heart would tremble. I shed physical tears of pain. Alice approached me maliciously and quietly. "Does it hurt? This pain should be less than the pain in your heart, right?" As she spoke, she couldn't help laughing and exaggeratedly said that I was so stupid. Then she raised her foot and stepped hard on my finger. I broke out in cold sweat all over my body. I only heard the sound of my finger cracking, but I couldn't feel the pain in my finger. Then Alice sneered and said, "Arthur clearly loves me. He's too kind. Just because of your little life-saving grace, he has been worried about you all the time. Since he can't bear to do it, I have to help him." I clenched my lips, and the anger in my heart wanted to burst out. It's useless to argue with her now. I have to wait for the opportunity to save myself. I should reserve my strength and wait for the zombie tide to approach. The moment they leave me behind is the chance for me to survive. If I argue with her at this time and lose my life in vain, I'll really be pissed off. I asked in a trembling voice, "Is a man really worth you doing this? If Arthur can treat me like this, he will treat you the same way." Alice raised her voice and was very happy. "Do you think I'm the only one who risked my life to travel thousands of miles to find him? I received his message when the end of the world came. He cares about me and loves me. A relationship where both parties are committed is the one that's truly worthwhile." When I heard this, I immediately vomited out another mouthful of blood. That scumbag Arthur really had been fiddling with his phone when the end of the world came, but he told me that he was looking for a signal and seeking rescue. I wanted to help, but he refused me on the grounds that such a small matter didn't need my handling. Alice was extremely proud. "Arthur's feelings for you are different from his feelings for me. The love between him and me is supreme." I saw that Alice was too deeply poisoned by love. Since I wanted to live, I could only plead with her again. "I've already broken up with Arthur. Can you spare me?" She said indifferently. "Spare you? It's impossible. You have to die," I roared. "I have nothing to do with him anymore. Can't I avoid him in the future? Why do you have to take my life?" I was so angry that my whole body trembled. The pain intensified, and the old wound that was about to heal started bleeding again. Alice burst out laughing. "You're so naive. If I spare you in the apocalypse, will you spare me if you survive? Just as you said, if you awaken your superpower, I'll be afraid of death. I won't give you this chance." Just then, Arthur saw us talking, frowned, and asked what was going on. Alice launched another round of scolding at me. She said that I was begging her for mercy, and she felt a bit sorry for me and had a guilty conscience. Arthur put his arm around her and said through gritted teeth, "Don't pay attention to her. Those who disregard true feelings deserve to die." I tried to touch Arthur's heart and prayed that he would still have a trace of compassion for me. I swallowed my saliva in pain and said, "Arthur, I feel that the blood in my body is burning, and I'm about to awaken my superpower." Alice sneered. "Do you think you can awaken your superpower just because you want to? Arthur, don't be fooled by her." I gritted my teeth in hatred, regretting that I should have stayed away from Alice the moment I met her. The roars of the zombies started to float over, neither too far nor too close. With the wind, everyone's face turned pale. The speed of dragging me along increased with their steps. Seeing that the zombies were getting closer and closer, my heart started to beat faster. In order to avoid more injuries from being dragged, I straightened my whole body to avoid friction with the ground. When encountering stones on the way, I used them as a way to slow down. Seeing that I didn't cooperate, Alice stepped forward and picked up a stone to smash my leg. I clearly heard the sound of the stone colliding with my bone. The excruciating pain all over my body made me scream. My screams undoubtedly attracted the zombies. This scene made everyone even more terrified. Arthur immediately impatiently tore off a piece of my clothes and stuffed it into my mouth. Alice sneered beside him. "Sister Eleanor is really causing trouble." She's still shouting loudly at this time. "She clearly wants to kill everyone." After hearing this, Arthur became even angrier and slapped my face hard. I was in so much pain that my eyes went blurry, and my heart was filled with hatred. I didn't want to die at the hands of these two scumbags and bitch. I raised my uninjured leg and kicked Arthur hard in the stomach with my knee. Arthur let out a painful roar. Before he could react, I spat out the clothes in my mouth and bit his face. When he fell down, blood kept gushing out of my mouth, and I bit down hard until I bit off a piece of meat from Arthur's face. Arthur covered his face and screamed in pain. Alice was stunned by the scene in front of her. Then she shrieked, "Arthur, grab the meat and find a doctor to stitch you up at the safe base." After hearing this, I curled the corners of my mouth. I didn't give Arthur a chance at all and chewed the piece of meat with my mouth tightly closed. The fishy smell of human flesh filled my mouth, and I stared at Arthur with a fierce look in my eyes. This scumbag, I had originally wanted to step into the marriage hall with him, but now I wished I could eat his flesh and drink his blood. Alice was intimidated by my fierce appearance and didn't dare to step forward. She mumbled, "Crazy, really crazy. You actually dared to eat human flesh." 6. Arthur got up and kicked me wildly like a madman. The missing piece of meat on his face made him look ferocious. Alice realized her gaffe. She shook her head left and right and saw that everyone was running for their lives and had no intention of caring about what was happening here. Then she let out a sigh of relief. She quickly comforted him. "Arthur, Eleanor has completely turned into a zombie. Hurry up and deal with her. We can still have cosmetic surgery when we get to the base." Arthur turned to look at Alice, which made people feel scared, but she gritted her teeth and said, "Arthur, I won't leave you behind." Kill Eleanor quickly so that we can escape. I spat the chewed meat at the two of them and said, I've awakened 50% of my superpower. You two just wait for death. Arthur frowned and hesitated. Alice said anxiously, do you think awakening superpowers is as easy as having a meal? I conserved my strength and stopped talking. I only had a chance to escape when the zombies attacked, seeing that I wasn't afraid of death at all. Alice sneered. I'll make you die before you can awaken your superpower today. Let's see if you have the ability to come back to life. Alice grabbed my hair with her left hand and stabbed straight at my stomach with the dagger in her right hand. The blood in my body was burning and even boiling. I could already feel the wonderful sensation of automatic recovery, but I still pretended to scream in pain so that I could attract the zombies faster. Alice turned around and handed the dagger to Arthur. Arthur. My strength is too weak. I didn't even hit the vital part at all. You stab her a few times. Make her die quickly. Arthur covered his face and looked at me viciously. He didn't hesitate at all and stabbed a knife into my body. I didn't have time to deal with them anymore. I could already hear the roars of the zombies in my ears. I tore off the ropes binding my hands and caught the dagger in Arthur's hand with my bare hands. I snatched the dagger backhandedly and slashed at his face again. Blood gushed out again, and he screamed in pain, and I took the opportunity to turn over and get up, avoiding Alice who pounced on me. I gasped for breath and restored my physical functions. I slowly stepped back in the direction of the zombies, seeing that the situation was not right. Arthur waved at me anxiously and said, Eleanor, I'm doing this to end it all for your own good. You love beauty so much. How terrifying it would be to become a zombie. But Alice roared, Arthur. Don't be fooled by her. Don't you know her trick? It's just a precursor to turning into a zombie. Just kill her directly. Zombies kept appearing around. Since Alice couldn't kill me, she turned around and wanted to run away. With the sound of my bones being reshaped, I laughed and threw the dagger in my hand away. I rubbed my wrists left and right and said, I have successfully awakened my superpower. Alice was stunned for a moment. Impossible. I moved my hand casually. And the dagger on the ground returned to my hand again. I tilted my head and said, I have successfully awakened my superpower. You know, she picked up the stone on the ground and threw it at my head again. Bitch, trying to scare me. Do you think you can awaken your superpower just like that? You've just turned into a zombie. I don't believe it. Don't try to deceive me. Then Alice ignored the siege of the zombies and, with red eyes, wanted to come and kill me, but was held back by Arthur. When the zombies approached, his voice trembled, let's go first, let's go first. After crushing the head of a zombie with one hand, I said to the two of them, I'll let you two run for 3 kilometers first. Alice took a deep breath, held back her anger, and was pulled away by Arthur. When they were exhausted and finally got rid of the zombies and relaxed their vigilance, I cut off one of Arthur's legs. His eyes widened in surprise when he fell down, not knowing what had happened at all. Then he let out a pig-like scream. Alice swallowed and shook her head. Stepping back, I rubbed the blood-stained long knife against Arthur's uninjured face a few times. Arthur trembled in fear and didn't dare to move. He was afraid that the knife in my hand would accidentally hurt him. I smiled softly and said, Can't you run anymore? I'm almost dying of anxiety following behind you. Alice shrieked, This is a society ruled by law. You can't kill people. 7. I let out a cold snort and motioned for Alice to look around. I reminded her, there are no surveillance cameras here. If I kill you, I can disguise you as being bitten to death by zombies. Alice, I can do what you can do, and I can do even better the things you can't do. Alice hurriedly dropped Arthur and started to flee. I sneered. Sure enough, when disaster strikes, husband and wife each go their own way. Arthur dragged his injured leg and cursed Alice. Then he lay down on the ground, covering his wound with one hand and slapping his face with the other, crying and begging me, Eleanor, spare me. It was that bitch Alice who seduced me. I walked up to him and, imitating the way he had stabbed me with a dagger before, pretended to stab at his stomach. Arthur was so scared that he wet himself on the spot and said in a trembling voice, Eleanor, I was wrong. I beg you. I'll do anything you want me to do in the future, as long as you don't kill me. Don't you hate Alice? I'll help you kill her. I looked up and sighed. This was the scumbag man I had fallen for before, hypocritical and disgusting, so I raised my hand and stabbed Arthur several times. The smell of blood and his screams were all that was left in the air. Arthur gradually fell silent. As for Alice, she could only run 100 meters in 5 minutes, while I could reach the scene in 10 seconds. When death was really approaching, Alice truly felt an uncontrollable fear. She knelt down tremblingly and begged me for mercy. She cried and said, Sister Eleanor, I'm sorry. We were blind and misjudged people. Please give me a chance to live. I smiled faintly, but you didn't give me a chance to live for the scumbag men either. Did you? Alice was stunned. And the tears on her face stopped flowing. When she tried to speak again, she found that her throat was blocked by phlegm and she couldn't open her mouth. Her face turned red with regret and anxiety, and she kept shaking her head. Alice kept hitting her chest. She almost choked herself to death before spitting out a trace of blood. She was so scared several times that she almost fainted, but her reason made her sober up, and then she burst into tears. I was wrong. I shouldn't have had the intention to kill you, but soon, Arthur rushed towards me, looking at the ropes in my hand. Alice sensibly tied her hands together. She was both flattering and in a dilemma. Sister Eleanor, I'm afraid of pain. I tightened the ropes and easily made Alice lie on the ground and be dragged along. Listening to her grimacing in pain, I felt extremely satisfied. Does it hurt already? You'll have to experience something even more painful after hearing this. Alice rolled her eyes and looked completely desperate. Realizing that I had no intention of sparing her, she immediately stopped pretending and cursed at me despite the pain. In the end, I got annoyed and cut out her tongue. Then the world became quiet. I fed the bodies of the scumbag and the bitch to the zombies to destroy the evidence. In the apocalypse, if I'm not ruthless enough, it will be me who dies. Later, I returned to the safe base and reunited with my family. Only then did I know the reason why Arthur and Alice broke up. Alice and Arthur's families were not a good match in social status, and they encountered opposition from their families. Alice had no choice but to use her petty tricks to seduce Arthur. Arthur couldn't let go of Alice, and under the pressure from his family, he had no choice but to find me through a blind date to deal with his family. The two of them had been having an affair secretly without my knowledge, unexpectedly. The arrival of the apocalypse gave Alice the right opportunity. She wanted to take the upper hand, and the apocalypse became her best chance. She wanted me to die in the mouths of the zombies without anyone noticing. Unfortunately, she didn't expect that I would be lucky enough to awaken my superpower. Alice must be furious even in hell after her death. Later, I joined the base's guard team with my superpower. From now on, I will defend my country to the death. A bright future awaits me. Story 2. In my previous life, the apocalypse had arrived. The man who always claimed to love me betrayed me, delivering me to a boss before usurping his position himself. Once he became the leader, he beheaded me for another woman and placed my head beside their bed as a grotesque trophy while they reveled in their love. Disgusting, right? In this new life, I decided to cling directly to the boss's coattails. Let that treacherous couple perish. 1. It's so noisy. What's happening? I opened my eyes and found myself in a classroom-like setting surrounded by young boys and girls in school uniforms chatting. Wait, wasn't I killed by Benjamin? He slit my throat to please his mistress, decapitating me just before I died and placed my head by their bed. Watching him continuously move atop his lover, it was nauseating, utterly revolting. The mere thought made me want to vomit. I fought hard to suppress the urge to throw up. Charlotte, what's wrong? A familiar sickening voice reached my ears. I looked up to see Benjamin, feigning concern. You look so pale. What's wrong? I touched my face and pinched it hard, feeling the pain which confirmed this wasn't a dream. I had been reborn. Perhaps it was the immense hatred I felt before dying that gave me a chance to start over. I forced a weak smile while my hands shook under the desk. It's nothing. Probably just didn't sleep well last night. It wasn't fear but excitement, Benjamin. This time it's your turn to die, too. Benjamin, oblivious to my frailty, eagerly pointed in a direction, signaling me to look. Look at that guy. He's like a dog. Haha. And he started laughing without waiting for my reaction. I knew who it was. The boy in our class who everyone bullied. Honestly, I didn't remember him much from our previous school days. I was the privileged Charlotte. Why would I care about an orphan? I had never realized we were classmates when Benjamin first delivered me to him. Who would have thought such an overlooked person would turn into a werewolf mutant when the apocalypse came? In my past life, I didn't know his name, so I didn't know what to call him, but he made sure I learned his name through action. Arthur. Unsure what to call him, a man's lust-filled hoarse voice whispered in my ear. Arthur, I can't take it anymore, only to be met with more vigorous thrusts. Arthur, I'm calling out for you. My voice gradually became shaky, breaking into sobs. Arthur. Each time I called his name, it only made the man more forceful, as if branding his name into my heart, never to be forgotten. Thinking this, I dared not continue, yet my pale face began to blush quietly. Arthur, I called out his name. He looked up at me. I scrutinized him carefully. The untransformed Arthur was frail, nothing like how he was in my previous life, overpowering me. Why am I thinking of this again? You big glutton. 3. As I walked toward Arthur, the crowd around him parted. Making way for me, I stopped in front of his desk, looking down at him. Arthur, need money? I knew the answer but asked deliberately. He looked up at me. I remained silent. After a while, he slowly nodded. Good. I'll give you 30,000 a month. You'll be my bodyguard. Primarily to. I blushed remembering his prowess from our previous life. But seeing his current scrawny physique, I suddenly lost interest. After calming down, I scanned the classroom and pointed at Benjamin. Keep him away from me within half a meter. The classroom, previously buzzing with whispers, fell deathly silent. Everyone knew Benjamin liked me, and they assumed we were a couple. Arthur lowered his head again. It seemed that he wasn't much interested in the games of the wealthy like us. After hearing what I said, Benjamin's face flushed with warmth. What do you mean by that, Charlotte? I'm serious. He's annoying, always bothering me. I ignored Benjamin, cupped Arthur's face with both hands, and looked into his eyes, trying to speak as sincerely as possible. Calculating the time, there was only 1 month left until the apocalypse arrived. The first outbreak happened at our school. During class, one of the students suddenly went mad and bit his classmate. From then on, the apocalypse descended. The streets were overrun with zombies, those who were bitten and infected, and those who suddenly mutated. I needed Arthur to protect me. Based on my experience from my previous life, I had transformed into a rabbit hybrid. I could endure pain well and had strong self-healing abilities. If it weren't for the fact that I kept cutting off my own flesh to feed Benjamin while on the run, he would have abandoned me halfway. Though a rabbit hybrid, what he ate was still my flesh. And he could really stomach it. Just thinking about it makes me feel nauseous. Benjamin grabbed my hand abruptly. Charlotte, where did I go wrong for you to humiliate me like this? His face, which I thought was passably handsome in my previous life, now seemed detestable. I just find you really annoying and disgusting, I said as I withdrew my gaze from him and continued to stare at Arthur. Finally, Arthur nodded and moved from the last row near the trash can to sit beside me. To avoid Benjamin bothering me, you need to follow me to and from school, I whispered to Arthur during the last math class, slipping him a note. Arthur just responded with a The guy seemed as indifferent as someone asexual. What I mean is, you should stay at my house. I wrote another note to him. It's easier to protect me that way. My house has a special room for bodyguards, so Arthur moved into my house. I stockpiled a lot of things at home, useful or not. It was always good to have more. I asked Arthur if he had any dietary restrictions, but he didn't speak. I remembered from my previous life that he seemed to really like sweets. Every time we went out to gather resources, he would bring back a lot of sweets, trying one first, and giving me the ones he didn't like, consuming the rest himself. I specifically stockpiled quite a lot of sweets. I told him, no worries. Just take them whenever you feel like it. Arthur looked at the half-warehouse of sweets and furrowed his brow deeply. The days that followed were so ordinary that I even began to doubt whether the apocalypse would come. I counted the days. 3 days before the apocalypse, my good friend Amelia came to ask me, what's the deal with you and that loner, Arthur? Looking at her, my so-called good friend, my body couldn't stop shaking. At that moment, a hand landed on my shoulder. It was Arthur. He wrapped his arms around my shoulders from behind. And I felt the warmth from his body. Finally, my body stopped shaking. I calmed down. I smiled at Amelia and said, what you see is what it is. Then I turned around with Arthur and headed home, warning him as we walked. She can't come within half a meter of me. I won't count it as your negligence today, but next time I might have to dock your pay. Perhaps the shock of Amelia's visit during the day was too much for me. That night, I dreamed about the events of my previous life. In that life, Amelia had escaped alone to Arthur's base after seeing me and Benjamin. She flirted with Benjamin, convincing him to hand me over to Arthur in exchange for a higher position in the base. One day, while Arthur was out with a large troop scavenging for supplies, I was sound asleep in the base. The night before, Arthur had kept me up until midnight. As I stared at the shaking ceiling over Arthur's shoulder, I unintentionally drifted off into thought. Arthur noticed I was distracted, daydreaming. After saying that, he nudged me again. Those nudges brought tears to my eyes. Such a strong young man indeed. He licked away my tears and then whispered gently in my ear, is there anything you'd like to eat? Shall I bring it for you tomorrow? I shook my head, but he seemed unsatisfied with that response, and he started to grind slowly against me. It made me uncomfortable, and I intermittently spoke up, ice cream, I want milk ice cream. Even then he wasn't satisfied, so I continued, Arthur, move a bit. At my words, he thrust fiercely, and I only felt him shudder violently before I passed out. When I woke up, he had already left with others to gather supplies, leaving only the women and children without fighting ability at the base. The base, built by Arthur, was hidden and solid, hence very safe. Unexpectedly, at that moment, Benjamin broke into the base with some men. Logically, he should have been out with Arthur and the others gathering supplies, but for some reason, he came back. Bringing a group of mutants with him, he threatened everyone at the base, demanding Arthur hand over control of the base to him. That's when Arthur discovered that he had somehow transformed into a mutant, a snake, capable of controlling people's minds. He took control of everyone's minds at the base, forcing Arthur to leave. Arthur only asked me if I wanted to go with him. Benjamin watched me with interest. Looking at Arthur holding the melting ice cream, I just shook my head. Go ahead. I feel safer with Benjamin. With you, I'd just be wandering outside. I can't live like that. I knew that if I went with Arthur, Benjamin wouldn't let us off easily. Only if I stayed at the base would Benjamin let his guard down, and Arthur would be safe. After Arthur left, Amelia tied me up to the central stone pillar in the base. Every morning, people would come to slice me 100 times, specifically targeting my face. In the evening, another group would come to cut me another 100 times. Starting from my chest, due to the special abilities of the rabbit mutant, I couldn't die. Despite the pain, I refused to scream. As Amelia sliced me with a knife, she gritted her teeth. "Charlotte, you're truly despicable. Seducing Arthur wasn't enough. You had to seduce Benjamin too." She then viciously sliced across my chest. The pain brought tears to my eyes, but I still kept silent, just biting my lip hard. I couldn't understand why Amelia, who used to be so close to me, had become like this. I just stared at her, seeking an answer. Seeing my defiant eyes, she viciously cut me again. "I hate your sanctimonious act. Weren't you also played by Arthur? What are you pretending for now? Do you think Benjamin still treasures you?" In his eyes, "What's the difference between you and a worn-out shoe?" I closed my eyes, no longer wanting to hear her speak. Seeing my reaction, she frenziedly continued to cut me repeatedly. "I'll make you stop pretending you're so high and mighty." As she spoke, she suddenly laughed. Then she picked up the knife and began to carve words into my skin. I awoke from the nightmare, the pain from the dream still lingering on my body. I curled up, hugging myself, but it didn't get any better. I decided to run to Arthur's room in the dark, knocking politely on his door, but there was no response from inside, so I just opened the door and went to sleep beside him. After so many times in my past life, what was one more night, lying beside him, I realized something was off. His body was burning up, and I could feel the heat even lying next to him. I hurriedly fetched a basin of cold water and a towel, which I wrung out and placed on his forehead. When the towel warmed up, I replaced it. Just as I was about to touch his forehead again, he grabbed my hand. He opened his eyes, and I noticed they had turned green. "Arthur, Arthur," I managed, held by one hand, gently patting his face with the other. Suddenly, he embraced me tightly and sniffed at my neck. Then, he bit down hard. "Ouch," I exclaimed in pain. He seemed to be restraining himself as he breathed heavily, his arms tightening around me. I was almost choked by his grip, desperately slapping his arms. Finally, his body shuddered violently, and he released his hold, fainting. After running around all night, now I had to drag him back to bed. I felt his strong body, transformed through evolution. This is great. I mean, now he can finally protect me properly, under my supervision. Arthur has been working out daily for the past month, and we have a caretaker at home preparing specialized nutritious meals for him. His physique has tremendously strengthened compared to before. Especially after his transformation. Holding his arms, I felt a sense of security and soon fell into a deep sleep. There really was no need to go back to school, so I took a leave for both Arthur and myself. On Monday, when the school was typically at its fullest, a zombie outbreak occurred. As I lay on the sofa, pondering over what triggered my previous transformation into a rabbit, the doorbell rang. I asked Arthur to see who it was. Arthur didn't come back, and when I went to check, it was Benjamin and Amelia. I hadn't been discreet when stocking up supplies. Amelia had seen me unloading them from the car that day and brought Benjamin to my house. Seeing Arthur blocking the doorway, not letting them in, filled me with a sense of security. I approached and patted his back, signaling him to step aside as I wanted to speak with Benjamin and Amelia. Arthur seemed unhappy, keeping a vigilant eye on them. "Want to come in? Sure, but you'll have to follow my rules. Are you willing?" With zombies everywhere outside and their lack of transformation abilities, they had no choice but to agree to anything I said. They nodded, eager to enter, but I stopped them. "First, kiss each other for me." They froze, not understanding my intent. "Charlotte, my heart belongs only to you. Why humiliate me like this?" Amelia echoed him. "Yes, Charlotte, Benjamin has only you in his heart. This is too hard for us." I nodded, acknowledging their reluctance. "You won't do it, huh?" Then I signaled Arthur to close the door, realizing I was serious. They quickly locked lips, watching their practice movements. I wondered how many times they had done this before. Disgusted, I had intended to disgust them but ended up disgusting myself. The kiss is too ugly. I'm not satisfied, so Arthur promptly pushed them out and shut the door. Benjamin, realizing he'd been played, cursed loudly at the door. "What are you so proud of, Charlotte? How long can you survive with just an orphan? Let me in now, and I'll forgive you. Damn orphans, I wonder how long you can last in there. If you're capable, stay inside forever and never come out." Amelia played the victim. "Charlotte, aren't we good friends? Please let me in, I beg you. Charlotte, it's really scary outside. I'm so frightened." As she spoke, she began to sob outside. I looked at Arthur. In my previous life, when Amelia arrived at the base looking disheveled, Arthur had let her in without a word. I was afraid he might soften again, but this time, he walked back into the house without turning back. Sensing my gaze, he turned and asked, "What's wrong? Don't you feel sorry for Amelia? Don't you want to let her in?" "Why?" I continued staring at him without responding. "This is your home. Whether or not to let them in is your decision," Arthur explained. "Oh, so it was because he wasn't in charge here. In my previous life, he was the leader of the base." So he naturally had the authority to let anyone in. Benjamin's words caught my attention. He was right about one thing. We can't keep hiding here forever. Even if I have stocked up enough supplies, we have accumulated enough to live in the villa for a lifetime, just the two of us. But it can't go on like this, although I don't know how Arthur became the leader of the base in his previous life. It certainly wasn't by hiding in one place. I've decided to lay low in the villa for a while longer. Then make a move once things have settled. Arthur didn't comment on my decision, but he started leaving early and returning late more frequently. One night, when Arthur came back to the villa in the middle of the night, I finally asked him, "What have you been up to lately?" Arthur didn't speak. He just handed me a crystal. When I took it, it melted in my palm. "What is this?" I asked. "When you kill the zombies, they turn into this," he replied. Arthur led me out of the villa. And to my astonishment, the ground outside was covered in glowing crystals. Countless zombies must have come through. The villa surely wouldn't hold up against so many zombie attacks. It must have been Arthur protecting me all this time. He pushed me gently, and I stood amidst the sea of crystals. I could feel my body undergoing a transformation, a change that I instinctively resisted. I tried to step out of the circle of light, but found I couldn't control my own body. "Arthur, I'm so scared. I don't want to stay here," I whimpered, on the verge of tears. Arthur's eyes reddened as he reached out to hold me, but then he seemed to remember something and reluctantly withdrew his hand. "Arthur, I hate you. You promised to protect me," I sobbed. I don't know when I passed out from crying, but Arthur eventually came and carried me back to our room. I unconsciously snuggled into Arthur's arms, feeling as though I was submerged in magma. I dreamed of my past life again, after I died. I wasn't fully reborn, although I had driven Arthur away. Benjamin still didn't trust him. If Benjamin hadn't brainwashed everyone at the base with mind control, he would never have been able to claim the leadership, fearing Arthur might return. Benjamin spread a message, calling him back to the base. He tied everyone up, released the mind control, and held a voting meeting. Those who supported Benjamin as the leader lived. Those who supported Arthur were killed. Arthur finally understood what needed to be done. He was forcing Arthur to a death by using civilians' lives. When Benjamin placed the knife on the first civilian's neck, Arthur finally moved. His hands transformed into wolf claws, and he clutched his own throat. I screamed out, "Arthur, don't." Eventually, I struggled awake from the nightmare to find my hand in Arthur's. He was originally asleep but woke up from my yelling. I clung tightly to his neck, muttering, "Arthur, I want to kill Benjamin. Kill Amelia." Arthur gently patted my back, comforting me. "Okay, I'll support whatever you want to do. Don't cry. Look, your eyes are all red like a little rabbit," he said as he gently wiped a tear from my eye. Listening to him, my anxious heart settled down. Oh, right, I remembered something. I reached for a military knife strapped to Arthur's thigh and slashed it across my arm. Arthur exclaimed in shock. "What are you doing?" But I showed him the wound that was slowly healing. "I've transformed into a rabbit." He didn't seem to care much, just kept staring at the place I had just cut. "Don't do this again. I don't want you to get hurt." I was stunned. After being constantly exploited by Benjamin in my past life, this was the first time someone told me they didn't want me to get hurt. Tears welled up in my eyes again as Arthur held me close and promised, "I will protect you." I nodded through tears. "Then you mustn't let yourself get hurt either." Arthur spent the entire night clearing out the stockpile in the warehouse. I was curious how he managed to do it. Arthur told me that he has a space inside his body where he can store a lot of things. I was stunned. I asked if he could also put me inside, to which he replied that it would be difficult since it only holds inanimate objects. I jokingly suggested that maybe I could die for a bit. He suddenly turned grim and ignored me for half an hour. When I approached to comfort him, I discovered he was secretly wiping away tears. My goodness, tears, they are a man's best dowry. He turned away to hide his tears, but I moved in front of him to keep looking at him. His ears turned red and he pulled his collar over his head, hiding inside his clothes, and muttered, "Stop looking. It's embarrassing." I leaned my forehead against his through the fabric. "It's not embarrassing. Arthur is my puppy." Gradually, he pulled down his collar, revealing only his eyes. I leaned in and gently kissed his reddened eyes, feeling his eyelids tremble under my lips. He choked up and said, "You promised me yesterday no more fooling around, and today you're saying things like this." I kissed him again. He continued, "You're a liar who doesn't keep your word." I kept kissing him. "You kiss him." His face flushed deeply, and I pulled down the collar of his hoodie, looking at him seriously. "I promise you, I won't say those kinds of things again." After saying that, I gently kissed his forehead. Then I stood up, pretending as if nothing had happened. "All right, we should get going." As I was about to walk away, I felt a strong pull. I was embraced in Arthur's arms, his face pressing down. Arthur's teeth gently grazed my lips, then his tongue fiercely invaded my mouth. I was kissed until I was weak, only able to lean on him. Just when I thought something was finally going to happen, he let go of me. It's getting late. Let's go. Sooner or later, I'll send Arthur to mine to see if I can extract such pure divine metal from him." I pulled Arthur's hand down, promising not to look at the scene over there anymore. I turned to Benjamin, who was incessantly muttering something. I listened carefully. Charlotte, he was calling my name. Arthur, who had apparently gained superhuman hearing after transforming into a werewolf, heard it too. His face darkened instantly, and I tried to calm his emotions. No rush, let's observe a bit more and find his weakness. Even though Benjamin could control people's minds, controlling such a large group surely exhausted a great deal of his energy. He wouldn't last much longer. Finally, during his next use of his powers, I noticed his eyes would flash briefly. I warned Arthur about my discovery, telling him not to look into Benjamin's eyes. Arthur covered his eyes with my headband and charged forward. He was too fast. Benjamin hadn't even reacted before everything went dark for him. Benjamin covered his eyes and cried out in pain. Arthur precisely blinded him with a small knife. Everyone controlled by Benjamin regained their senses the moment he was blinded. Amelia rushed to help the injured Benjamin, loudly cursing Arthur, but Benjamin pushed Amelia away, only asking Arthur, "Did you come? Where's Charlotte?" Seeing him dare to ask about me, Arthur rushed forward and punched him, but in that moment, Benjamin fiercely bit Arthur. "Tell me, where is Charlotte?" I saw the hand Arthur was bitten with turn black instantly, and I couldn't hold back anymore. I grabbed Benjamin by the collar. "What have you done to him?" Benjamin ignored my question, his face breaking into a mad smile. "Charlotte, you came. I was wrong. Can we go back to how it was? I killed Amelia. I avenged you, right? Charlotte, forgive me. I love you." As he reached to kiss my hand, I fiercely slapped him, knocking him to the ground with all my strength. "What nonsense are you spouting? What have you done to Arthur?" He nonchalantly looked away and spat out blood. "That brat, he won't live long. He's been poisoned by me. So Charlotte, shall we get back together?" I stared at him, speaking coldly. "I've told you before. You really are annoying and disgusting." I had people tie Benjamin up and throw him into a cage, letting him deal with his needs in there. Amelia, pushed away by Benjamin, heard this conversation and turned completely pale. She crawled to the cage where Benjamin was held, pleading, "Benjamin, you were just talking nonsense, right? You said you loved me the most, you said." Benjamin laughed louder upon hearing Amelia. "Ha ha ha ha. Are you kidding me? I like you. A worn-out shoe. Ha 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 ha. Do you know how many have had you? I like you. You're really a crazy old hag." Amelia, still hopeful, grabbed Benjamin's hand and moved it towards her exposed chest. "Benjamin, you said you loved me the most, remember?" Benjamin violently shook off her hand. "Didn't you hear? I said you're dirty." I didn't have time to deal with their antics. Arthur's condition was very bad. He was still able to talk and comfort me, but he was growing weaker, tears in my eyes. I watched Arthur, who was struggling more to inhale than exhale, and choked up calling his name. "Arthur, Arthur, don't die. Arthur, Arthur, why is it always like this in both lives?" At this moment, I despised my helplessness. Arthur was gently caressing my hand, comforting me, but then suddenly he turned over and pinned me beneath him. I angrily hit him. "At a time like this, you still think of this?" But he coughed up blood and fell to the side. Just then, I realized Amelia had approached from behind, knife in hand, ready to stab me. Arthur saved me. I kicked Amelia away, my expression dark. "It's one thing to hurt me. No, it's not okay even then, but how dare you hurt Arthur?" I picked up the knife and fiercely slashed her face, now relatively calm. Amelia screamed as her face was cut. "Don't scar my face, my face. Benjamin said he loved me the most. How dare you scar my face? Heh, you do care about someone." Suddenly, I thought Amelia might know how to cure the poison. Arthur certainly wasn't the first person to be poisoned by Benjamin's snake venom. Considering Amelia had been with him so long, I held the knife close to Amelia's face and demanded, "Tell me, how do you cure Benjamin's snake venom?" Amelia mocked me. "You're so foolish. Do you think I would tell you?" I pondered for a while and then threatened her. "So you won't talk? If you don't, I'll kill Benjamin right now. And then you." However, she looked almost blissful, as if dying alongside Benjamin was the greatest honor she could imagine. Realizing her devotion, I continued, "One buried in the Antarctic, the other in the Arctic, but if you tell me, I will bury you two together, allowing you to be a loving couple in your next life." Amelia hesitated. "So I upped the ante. I'll even arrange a ghost marriage for you." Finally, Amelia spoke. "Snake gall, Benjamin's heart, but don't use too much. Benjamin once told me his heart is highly toxic. You only need half. The other half must be for me." I nodded in agreement. I walked up to the cage where Benjamin was held. Benjamin, as if he could smell my presence, came close and sniffed intensely. "Charlotte, is that you? Charlotte, huh? I knew you would choose me. Charlotte, I truly love you. I had a dream where I treated you terribly, but I've changed now. From now on, I will treat you well and protect you. Charlotte." I plunged a knife into his chest, stopping him from continuing. I couldn't stand it anymore. It was disgusting. Whether he was reborn like me or really had a dream about his past life, the harm he had done was real. As Benjamin bled from his mouth, he kept mumbling, "Charlotte, I really, truly love you." I responded with the same line I had used before, "Benjamin, I've told you before, your obsession with me is truly disgusting, regardless of whether he was chasing me from a past life or now looking like a dying dog. While he was still alive, I cut out his heart, I kept my promise and gave half to Amelia. Unexpectedly, Amelia swallowed the heart immediately upon receiving it. Soon, black blood dripped from the corners of her mouth. She fell with a blissful expression on her face. I didn't fully trust Amelia's words, but I had no choice but to pin my hopes on them. I slowly fed the medicine to Arthur, hoping each bite would awaken him, but as the medicine was nearly gone, Arthur still hadn't woken up. Finally, I couldn't hold back anymore and began to cry over his body. Arthur, wake up, please wake up. You said you'd protect me. You said you wouldn't let anyone bully me, yet you're the one who bullied me the most, you liar. I was crying so intensely that I didn't notice Arthur's fingers trembling slightly. Cough, cough, it hurts, Charlotte, kiss me. I abruptly lifted my head to see Arthur looking at me with a playful smile, just like he used to when he was hurt. Charlotte, aren't you going to kiss me? Realizing what was happening, I threw myself at him and our lips met. As Arthur's strong lips embraced mine, I finally felt the shadows of my past lives lifting. Spring had arrived. It felt as if I could hear a deer gently grazing in the meadows. It was actually my heart, ceaselessly pounding. I savored the thrill that Arthur brought to my heart that had wandered for 2 lifetimes, now finally at peace. After yet another bullying incident, Charlotte ran up but soon found herself lost and directionless, unsure of what to do, and as dusk turned to darkness, Charlotte became overwhelmed with fear and began to cry. She had heard stories of wolves prowling the woods near Arthur at night, allegedly taking away disobedient children, but Charlotte had always been well behaved. She didn't want to be taken by the wolves. What could she do, now that the parents who loved her most in the world had passed away? The nanny at home was hired by relatives under the pretense of caring for her. However, they didn't care about Charlotte at all, not even noticing when she had slipped away. What are you doing here? Charlotte, heartbroken and sobbing, heard someone ask. Arthur, seeing the little girl in a dress crying before him, felt compelled to speak. Almost as if by some supernatural force, I'm lost. I want to go home. Arthur listened as the little girl stuttered through her tears, guessing her situation, and not wanting to disturb his grandmother by returning late. Arthur offered to walk her home. Charlotte looked at the boy, who seemed about her age, and unexpectedly felt that he wasn't a bad person. The raggedly dressed boy and the princess-dressed girl each held onto an end of a stick, walking one in front of the other under the night sky. After escorting Charlotte home, he watched as she stood at the gate of her villa, waving goodbye. See you tomorrow, brother. I'll come to play with you. But Charlotte didn't go the next day, nor the day after. Arthur waited a month and still, Charlotte never appeared. Little liar. When Arthur entered high school, he unexpectedly found himself in the same class as Charlotte. But she didn't remember him, of course. Why would a castle-dwelling princess remember an orphan like him? Arthur thought it was magical, almost like a post-apocalyptic reality, that werewolves could exist, and he had become one. The first thing Arthur did after the zombie outbreak was to look for Charlotte, but she had already been taken away by her new boyfriend, so Arthur had to fend for himself, fighting monsters to level up. He wasn't even sure what he was clinging to. Perhaps he thought by killing more zombies, Charlotte would be safer. As he unknowingly established his own base, he saw Charlotte again. She was in bad shape, her body covered in blood and scars. The man with her, however, looked healthy and proposed to offer Charlotte to him in exchange for a squad leader position at the base. Arthur was truly furious but masked it with agreement. Arthur took good care of Charlotte, her frail body gradually becoming healthier. Charlotte liked sweets, so every time Arthur went out for supplies, he paid special attention to finding desserts. He would taste them first upon returning to the base. If they were good, he'd give them to Charlotte, eating the bad or expired ones himself. Charlotte didn't understand why Arthur insisted on her calling him by his name, but she was deeply etched with the name Arthur by his actions. When the man used the people of the base to threaten Arthur, he didn't care at all. He just wanted to take Charlotte away. Charlotte said no. She couldn't live a nomadic life. Yes, she was a princess. How could she live like that? But life at the base wasn't good either. That man didn't cherish Charlotte. The last news Arthur received was of Charlotte's death. Arthur's confidant in the base, trembling with anger, told him the news. Arthur, however, was calm. He wanted revenge for Charlotte, so he killed those 2 men. To Arthur, killing 2 people was just an incidental act. He thought Charlotte would have a better life staying at the base. He was wrong. After avenging Charlotte, he found no reason to keep living. The people in the base, he didn't care about them. They didn't stand up to protect Charlotte when she was humiliated. He wouldn't protect them either. Killing zombies. With Charlotte gone, there was no point in killing zombies anymore. So, one foggy morning shrouding the base, Arthur left. He continued to kill any zombies that disturbed him along the way. He chose a quiet mountain peak and jumped, feeling the freedom as he fell. He thought, Charlotte, in the next life, please remember me.